Hi, my name is Jennifer Garcia. I teach middle school art at Lakeland Highlands Middle in Lakeland, Florida. I am a recent graduate of Florida State University's Art for Life program, their Master of Science in Art Education. I'm here today to share with you my graduate research work, an autoethnography through the framework of affect theory about my experience as a first-year art teacher or becoming art teacher. I organized the autoethnographic data into 5 acts and an epilogue. The 5-act play structure transforms the classroom space into a stage where the interaction of materials and space with me as both the subject and researcher are in a process of becoming. I liken this to an actor's process of becoming a character through makeup and costuming and stepping onto the stage space. Additionally, the 5-act play structure is a nod to Karen Barad's 2010 article, Quantum Entanglements and Ontological Relations of Inheritance. In this article, she uses Michael Frayn's Tony Award-winning play Copenhagen to express understandings of quantum entanglements. Originally, I intended to adapt the results section of my research into a monologue of sorts and perform it at the conference for you, and then discuss how I came to autoethnography as a methodology and the ways that affect theory and autoethnography worked together in my research. With this new virtual format, I'm going to performatively read Act 2, Chairs and Agency, and the epilogue of my paper entitled The Affective Intensity of Classroom Materiality and Spatiality in Becoming Art Teacher. I'll also share some photos with you, like this photo here, which is a photo of some artifacts that I collected through the process of the research. And I took this photograph just to remind myself that while it doesn't look like a lot of data collection here, it really did feel very intense in the moments with which I was collecting it. So without further ado, I'd like to read to you Act 2, Chairs and Agency. I spend hours coming to grips with the placement of the furniture. It is an experiment in time travel, trying to anticipate how my students and I will utilize the space and then position the furniture accordingly. After many false starts, I find a solution that sends half the original furniture into other teachers' classrooms or into the school's storage. I then turn my attention to the chairs, and I begin setting them at tables. I become conscious of the idea that I am grappling with coordinating the chairs by color and style, having already ditched the broken ones. I'm at once disconcerted, but also amused with myself for obsessing about color and style. After contemplating the situation for a moment, I muse at whether this is the best use of my time. My aesthetic wins out over my logic, and I spend the time getting the chair to table ratio completely balanced. I'm delighted with my efforts, choosing to congratulate myself on having such an eye for detail and choosing to silence my inner critic who only sees my obsessiveness. In the frenzy of organization, I lose sight of the fact that this classroom is a shared space and students will disrupt my painstakingly produced order. I'm thrilled and astonished at how the students give life to the chairs in the classroom through alterations, disruptions, and movement. There's a rhythm in the repetition of chairs being unstacked each morning and restacked each afternoon, as if the chairs are lungs and the classroom breathes. Students scrutinize my preoccupation with the arrangement and distribution of the chairs, which cause me to interrogate my behavior. My thoughts turn to how an individual chair might hold me in a moment of exhaustion, or give me access to something beyond my reach, or infuriate me by being misplaced. And in return, I may mend it when it is broken, or clean it when it gets dirty. It is was then that I realized I have a relationship with and an attachment to the chairs. I am attuned to them. I will stop mid-sentence when I notice that they are out of order and beam when they remain composedly balanced. The chairs are a constant in my tumultuous first year. I share this realization with my students when they question why I care so much about a chair being out of place. I tell them that when we feel we are powerless and out of control in our worlds, it helps to find one thing that is in our power to control and center ourselves on that. For me, it's the chairs. When I feel powerless, they remind me of my agency and of my unique view of the world. So that is probably one of my favorite sections in my research. I love to talk about that section. It really emphasizes the affective quality of matter in the classroom, which leads me to how I became interested in affect theory. In the course on critical analysis in the master's program at FSU, I was assigned a reading from the book, The Affect Theory Reader. The chapter in particular was Worlding Refrains by Kathleen Stewart. I was hooked. Stewart's writing is emotionally intense and deeply personal, and I was thrilled that academic writing of this kind existed. I learned that she was writing autoethnography, and I started to learn more about affect theory. This leads me to the epilogue. It tells the story of COVID-19 intruding into the research, but also into my very identity as both teacher and researcher. Epilogue. I'm sitting in the teacher cafe reading Ordinary Affects by Kathleen Stewart while trying to scarf down my lunch in the few minutes I'm allotted. At the long table where I sit, I'm joined by a dozen or so other teachers. The talk at the long table is usually about students or new mandates passed down from legislators far removed from our ordinary. But for weeks, the talk is mostly about COVID-19. My attention is divided between my food, the book, and the talk when I come across these words, quote, "The ordinary can turn on you, lodged in habits, conceits, and the loving and deadly contacts of everyday sociality. It can catch you up in something bad or good," end quote. Stewart, 2007. I do not know it yet, but those words are a prophecy of what is coming. The country that I live in, along with all the schools, including mine, close their doors to enact what is referred to as social distancing, a means to prevent the spread of coronavirus because sociality has become deadly. School soon resumes, but it does not look or feel the same, as we are asked to deliver content in fully online virtual formats. Teachers, including myself, scramble to learn educational apps and find online resources while the county struggles to ensure that every student has remote access to their school. I cannot help but dwell on how it is all gone. The light, the tardy slips, the chairs, storage room, the kiln. They're all miles away, locked in a building that I no longer have permission to access. All the materials in the space that had become my refuge and my stability and my identity are now lost to me. My key and ID badge, the signifiers of my status and authority, lay in the bottom of a box on the lanyard that usually hangs around my neck 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. I spend hours at the computer now as I work to become an online teacher. This becoming is very different from the becoming I set out to explore in my research. I simultaneously feel very alone, and yet not alone at all, because I know that there are a world of people out there in their very own states of becoming. They're becoming remote workers, or homeschool parents, or essentials, or sick, or dying, or recovering. The United States is collectively becoming different too. No one knows what it will look like on the other side of coronavirus. I wrote those words 8 months ago, and we still do not know what things will look like on the other side of coronavirus. Fortunately, I'm back in my classroom with the space, the light, the chairs, the tardy slips, my storeroom, and my kiln. Losing those months with my classroom gave me a very different affective perspective from which to write. And it still lingers in my interactions with the space, materials, and even with my students. I hope that listening to the reading of my research has been an effective experience for you all. Hickey Moody 2013 suggests that affect as a method will encourage us to think about how our actions in the world make people feel. Perhaps that is what matters most, end quote. Researching during the time of COVID and experiencing the affective intensities of social distancing lead me to agree that affect theory will in fact encourage research that considers how actions make people feel. And I certainly think that that's what matters most. I look forward to discussing with you how autoethnography and even perhaps autoethnodrama as methodology can promote the effective resonance of affect theory research. See you soon.